Welcome to Cybersecurity District, the podcast where we interview the most inspiring minds in the cybersecurity industry. Get ready to meet our next guest in the district. Welcome back to Cybersecurity District. Today I'm sitting down with Roelof Kroon, the Corporate Information Security Officer at Alfen. Super nice to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laurens, for inviting me.
Yeah,
it's a real pleasure.
Really cool. You've been in the industry for 25 years. I think you started as an engineer and now climbed the corporate ladder all the way to the CISO level. How was it for you to transition from engineering to more leading management style, being a CISO?
Well, definitely not a straight road. So it was with its bumps and its turns and its challenges on its way. But it's still a learning exercise.
Yeah. Was it always a dream to become like a more of a leader?
No, actually not. I can recall job interviews in the past, and then they asked, "Well, what's your vision? Where do you want to stand in 5 years?" And I can recall on occasion that I said, "Well, definitely not a leader.
Yeah.
No management role for me. I'm very keen on engineering."
Yeah.
And that I think that changed over time.
But your engineering skills probably help you on a day-to-day basis as well.
Not always. Sometimes they're a blocker. They're more of it's my preferable skill set. And if you have only a hammer, everything is a nail.
Okay. Yeah.
So put away the hammer, take the screwdriver, take another thing in your tool set and use that.
Yeah, and it's a rather spectacular company you're working for, and also the growth. It's pretty insane. Can you elaborate a little bit more what Alfen is doing?
Sure. But yeah, perhaps back to my first introduction with an Alfen. I was invited for a job interview, and the same moment they had a tour in the company. So then I looked around and it was still orienting, and I said, "Wow, I know this business. It's electronics. I have an electronic engineering education. So for me, it was a perfect match with cybersecurity and electronic energy components. So that's what set off my journey at Alfen.
Yeah, but it's also a big OT component, because I think you guys are involved in a lot of different things like EV charging, so electric.
Yeah,
grids.
so in essence, we produce three main products. So charging equipment, for sure, that's what we are currently most famous for. We exist already over 80 years, 87, I think. And so we make substations. So that's could say the core of the business. And last few years, we really increased with the business unit energy storage. So those are the container size, battery systems.
Yeah, I've seen them around. It's impressive.
Three distinct products, but you could say three OT products.
Yeah. Well, what I find fascinating is that you have been an engineer by heart for say 20 years in your career, and then now you're CISO of a corporate and also listed. So it's listed on a stock exchange. So it's a very, I would say, regulated business. So I think it also requires like a good, solid political stakeholder probably to manage such a role.
Well, that's a very interesting point. On the regulation part, it's not like the finance sector. I came from the finance sector. Yeah. That is highly regulated. But I think with the NIS2 coming up, regulation is here to come.
Yeah.
And for me, that was one of the drivers to, I think after a few months, already initiate a program to be NIS2 ready.
Yeah.
Because I came from a regulated sector, and I recognized, regulation is coming. And we're working in manufacturing. It's the make industry.
Yeah.
And doesn't have that much regulation in place.
So it's actually refreshing compared to a global bank.
Indeed. Yeah.
What I like about you is that say, okay, there's regulation coming up, and I'm ready for it. Let's do this. Also know a lot of security people that kind of fear the DORA and the NIS2 and all the regulations. It's on the local, national level now. It's also coming from Europe. What's your view on all this regulation coming from Europe? Do we need it if we look at?
Yeah, so I have an internal presentation for the NIS2, and one of my slides has a title, From Europe with Love.
Okay.
And then I put in the logo of the James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. And of course, that's with a twink. Yes. Regulations is tough. It costs money. It's overhead. But on the other side, it also gives some clarity. It sets some boundaries. To a certain extent, that could be useful. So I'm trying to see the glass half full.
Yeah.
Have that leverage from law regulation, and support me in my job.
Yeah. So it's an enabler. You look at it positively.
For sure. Yeah.
What is it like to be a CISO on an electronical company? Like it's pretty much OT related as well. What do you see as sort of business risks, cybersecurity risk? Because it's not like banking; it's completely different. What do you identify as risks?
Yeah. So basically, two parts. So the IT part.
Yep.
So we have our IT environment.
Yep.
And that's something where the ISO 20001 applies most, because it has more its roots on that part of the information technology. On the other hand, indeed OT. So we work on the 62443 certification to also comply with the part of supply chain security.
Okay.
So again, in Article 21, there's mentioned supply chain security, and we are a supplier.
Yeah.
We supply to the energy sector. So, and that's also our phrase, in the heart of the energy sector, we are a key supplier there. So we have to take our responsibility to be that supplier. And from a NIS2 perspective, our customers have to look at their suppliers. So they come to us, hey, supplier Alfen, how did you do on this and then that? So then we have again the circle around.
Yeah, but I can imagine the IT security there are lots of standards out, and there's a lot of other companies that you can learn from. But the OT side is maybe more niche, more specific. What do you see there? That's maybe the coolest part with your background as an engineer.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of engineers, really smart and also security minded. So there's a lot of commitment on security, and that's what was a pleasant surprise for me when I started. They were thinking on security measures that have talked about in the banks, but I didn't expect it to be discussed with the components we are producing. So I was really surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and how, as a leader, how do you keep the team sort of motivated?
That's a good question.
It's a cat and mouse game, right? If you lose focus, maybe a couple of weeks or months later, and there are new.
Yeah, I think that's also the downside looking at the regulation. So, some perceive it as red taping. So you have to follow the procedure. You have to do this and that and that, and you have to log it, register it. Red tape, you could say. So not every engineer or technician is motivated to do a lot of paperwork.
And you know it
you
yourself.
You recognize it. Also, you're smiling. So So that's a challenge. How can you convince and have those processes embedded?
Yeah,
and a process guide you, support you, but it's a thin line between perceived as overhead, as annoyance, and etc. etc.
Yeah. So how, you're an engineer yourself. How do you keep them motivated? Because I also feel in security, sometimes you also have to go a bit outside of the regular lines to maybe crawl on the skin of a hacker to see, okay, what are we missing? So if you only follow the playbooks, it might become repetitive and you might miss something. So it's also good to have that purple teaming mindset.
Yeah, and I think coming back to initial statement, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So to a certain extent, I can use my technical skills. So talk with technical guys on a technical level, but also have focus on the people aspect and on the process aspect. So it's also about gaining confidence. Let them see you as a peer, that someone with knowledge on topics. And I'm for sure not an expert anymore, but I still know enough, and I talk the language, I understand engineers. So that's gaining trust. And also, I'm not a no company. So on occasion, you can see ISO office as the no office or the no company.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you cannot do this. No, you cannot. You should do this. And so I'm trying to avoid that to a certain extent and looking possibilities.
Okay. And how do you call it? A no officer?
Yeah, of a no company or no office.
Yeah. Ah, that's a new one. I think it's a cool one. Then you're just the police.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. No, very interesting. But where in the threat landscape are the biggest differences between how ready we are versus what's coming for us?
Not sure. I think it's also a resourcing issue. So, of course, the workforce is also getting older. I think there are a lot of factors that come to play, but also the threat landscape is increasing. And perhaps that's going faster than anticipated.
Yeah.
Training takes years, but all of a sudden we had the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, that slows down everything.
And then the pressure was put on from Russia with oil and gas perspective, and then things like that come to in play. Of course, that's stepping out of the security part, but things really accelerated, and we've seen the cyber attacks. We should have known with the attacks on Ukraine before the war already.
Yeah.
And that's also the threat landscape is getting intenser.
Yeah. And how do you with your team keep an eye out on the threat landscape? What kind of tools do you use or use your creativity? But how do you keep track of the technologies out there that can be used to penetrate organizations?
Focus on the controls. I think a control framework is helpful in that. So you have several controls. A lot of, you can say also best practice. Look ahead. So do your threat analysis, your risk analysis, but also look at the current state. So how is your incident response?
Yep.
What's happening right now? And also on your recovery part. So basically look at your NIST framework.
You're well trained on the frameworks. It's good.
Yeah, but for me, that's my toolkit.
Yeah.
And combine that with the process and the people.
Yeah. I like that.
A lot of things in my toolkit I can and should use.
Yeah.
And then, for example, we have also connected with ISACs. So the European Energy ISAC, for example. We're also working at an ISAC more national level. So there is, not sure if that was already, I think I can share that. So for the EV charging sector, we are working on the founding of an ISAC for that sector.
Okay.
So together with stakeholders in that sector, so the CPOs, service providers and manufacturers. So that's also stepping up giving the sector a more mature cybersecurity instrument
So it's also about collaborating with the ecosystem.
Yeah.
But to challenge you a bit more, if you look, for instance, at AI, is that then something that rings the alarm bells inside of the organization? Okay, it's new technology, cool, but also, okay, what are the implications for us? Maybe the frameworks are not really out there yet for how can we deal with AI. But as a team, you might have to look into it.
Yeah, well, if you, instead of follow the money, follow the data, what happens with your data? It goes in an algorithm. One of the things I'm concerned about is that your data is being stripped from its context. It goes in a algorithm. And then it's like mixing, and then another side of the algorithm, it comes out, stripped of its context.
Yeah.
So it's stripped of its context. And the context, what I'm referring to is the labeling, the authorization, everything you do in a normal situation with information, that puts it in context of your control framework on what should you do with confidential information, what should you do with public information. Then it rings a bell, then you know, okay, you have to do that and that.
Yeah.
But if your data gets in that algorithm again, it comes out on the other hand, and it's fresh, it is not recognizable anymore.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
And then it's, now you have a challenge. And if your intellectual property winds up in that. And also on the other side, if you retrieve interesting code, the context is gone.
Yeah.
You don't know who's the real owner,
if
it's licensed or not, and what the license was. It's just a snippet in your code again. I think we have to think different on data. I think that's more holistic approach or a different approach, because I think currently we also see data as something that's our own. But if you, let's say, put a BSD like of MIT license on all your code, well, then it doesn't matter anymore in the end, because it's also open source license. Perhaps you can tag it for some reason, but we are really stuck to our data, because data is the new oil. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that it has value.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can think of some way to deal with that, I think that could remove some boundaries on that.
Yeah.
And then it's more transparent, and then we can leverage the benefits of AI.
Yeah. What I find really interesting is the amount of charging stations that they're increasing so rapidly. And I think Alfen is one of the market leaders in the Netherlands. But what are really some of the threats that come along with this growth from a security perspective?
Going for first a charger. Well, if you can hack a charger, what can you do? You can charge for free. Okay, so if you charge for free with some amount, some time, in the open, you're on the street, or you're near a house, or there's a camera pointing at your car, for sure, I would say. So it's a really dumb attack and theft.
Yeah.
Okay, so scale up, next step. So then it's not about stealing, or perhaps it is, but try to influence the grid. Well, you need a lot of chargers for that. So tedious, hard work, result. Okay, so then you scale up to a magnitude again. But in order to do that, the target is not the charging stations anymore, but it's the charge point operator. They manage 1,000, 10,000, perhaps 100,000 charging stations. And they run in the cloud. They have a backend there.
Yeah.
With an interface, one access. So one interface to rule them all.
Yeah.
And that's where the report also goes to. So I think for us as a manufacturer, for sure, if our product is broken, hackable, it's not good. But from a more economic perspective, or a how you call it, the public, de maatschappij, society. You aim for those parties managing a lot of charging stations.
Yeah,
and then you can, that's I think the latest steps. Fast charging, those are really high capacity charging stations. Yeah, and then you can go to, okay, if I have that kind of systems under control, that power, then I can influence the grid.
Yeah,
and that's, let's say from a nation state perspective, try to get a lot of systems, high powered systems, to influence the grid.
Yeah, I like how you explain this example. Really, from I see the engineer, and you go, okay, this is the lowest level, then it becomes more serious,
okay.
And then eventually you're at like national state level. Nice how you you explained it. Yeah. Now that's a cool thing about this OT security. Yeah, and I think there's more involvement. We mentioned before about the threat landscape. Of course, there are more state actors involved. And I think company your size and with the growth, that there's probably more unwanted attention from state actors.
Yeah, from my perspective, supply chain. So we are a supplier. I don't want to be the supplier for being leveraged on being an entry point for the energy sector.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could be the gateway to like the big energy companies and providers.
Yeah, perhaps we are a supplier for that respect. So
yeah,
I think from a customer perspective, they look at their suppliers, and we are one of them.
Yeah.
So I want to be ready for that and have our security posture on par.
Yeah. And what's the most rewarding thing in this position?
I think the feedback from customers. So, for example, the ISAC I just mentioned, and this kind of talks. Well, basically, our customers are also sitting there. They value our products. They value us on. You say you are really a premium brand. I get the support. I get the updates. I get the stability. We hear you talk about security. We see the initiatives you take.
Yeah.
We want your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you think one step ahead. That's what the customer feels. So they don't even have to ask about security. You already have it there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice compliment. Yeah. And you've been in the IT sector for 25 years. How have you seen things change? So you started as an engineer, but slowly moved to security. What do you think is the biggest change from, say, today compared to 10 years ago? Sorry.
I think we talked up front for this interview. You also asked me, what are lessons learned?
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't do 10 years ago is, look out the window. So, because I was only focused on bits and bytes.
Yeah.
So that for me, within this position, and I've worked to that the last couple of years. But for example, I was at the financial institute, and there was also ISO department, risk department. So I met with those people, but I forgot, in retrospect, to ask them those questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing the things? Because I was only focused on what should we do.
Yeah. So you were too much of an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice lesson to share with the listeners. Yeah. Are there some other tips or tricks that you can share with the next generation of security professionals? So they might listen to you and think, wow, okay, that's a CISO of a very cool company. But what advice would you give them to also grow in their career?
I think get a set of tooling. So if I look at myself, I started with engineering, so with technology stuff, and along the way I learned to walk and talk with people, because in the end you work with people. And technology is only a mean to a goal. But you work with people, you do it for people, you do it for business. So, and also look at the process side, the procedures. Daunting, red tape, not fun from an engineer perspective, but they can help. It's also in the framework, there are controls. They can help you, just like a firewall, just like your WAF, just like your gateway.
Yeah.
Administrative controls can also help you.
So your advice would also learn the controls and make use of them.
Yeah, and think out of the box. If you look for OT security, if you have a OT environment with a system with high pressure, well, you can. And if you're an IT engineer, you think, how can I secure that from exploding because the pressure is increasing? Well, you can engineer a nice set of sensors, and then you engineer a valve, and then you create a management and a security system and things like that. But you can also put in an overpressure valve, and that's mechanical.
Yeah. Yeah, so be creative. Think out of the box.
Exactly. And that because that mechanical overpressure valve will work every time, and it will save people's life in the end. And if you look at the IT engineered construction, it will fail in the end at some point.
Well, what makes a good security professional in your eyes?
I think you need a lot of skills and know when to use which kind of tooling. So if you see someone struggle with an issue, and you have to determine if it's really a technical issue, because probably he will talk technical stuff, but try to look behind that. What is it that's really blocking you? Is it some kind of emotion, or why don't you get the support from your colleagues? Those kind of things. Also look at the person, look at the process, look at the technology. So have a broad vision instead of a laser focused vision on IT or technology.
And would you also support your teammates and your colleagues to do the soft skills training as well?
For sure. I can recall an incident some years ago when there was a major incident in the company. And for some reason, I had to go to the CMT, so the crisis management team with board members, to give an update. And Roelof, you have to go in that room and give the update. Okay, I thought, I can give an update, no worries.
Everybody's super
so
tensed.
Then I walked in the room and everybody was looking at me, and I basically collapsed. I said, I have to give an update and this and that. And it was some technical stuff. I said, but they wanted to know, what kind of choices do we have? What choice do we need to make? Give us options. We don't want to know that an update is lacking, or an interface is overflowing, or whatever. Give us options.
Yeah.
So then we can decide.
And were you well prepared enough?
No way.
No.
So, and after they recognized it. Okay, an engineer. Okay, thank you for the update. So I went back. I delivered my message.
Yeah.
In the back, they said, well, send another one.
Yeah, but then you were not a CISO yet. Then you were still an engineer.
No, it was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a super relevant case. Yeah. So, but now you're more the business leader. Now you know what information they actually need when a situation like this would occur.
For sure. Present choices.
Yeah, be a business leader. Yeah, give them options.
Exactly. Yeah. Because a manager, a board, makes decisions. They steer a company, but left or right.
Yeah.
What are the options? What are the benefits?
Yeah.
That's something that the board does. Or a director.
Yeah.
They steer.
Yeah. No, so it is about the soft skills more and more. It's
And for you, it's to translate all those vulnerability you have.
Yeah.
You have a lot of time vulnerabilities, but translate them in risk and translate them in a direction.
Yeah.
What are the important ones? Which translate in a risk, because not every vulnerability is a risk.
So prioritize also.
Yeah, if I use a library and one of the calls is vulnerable and we don't use that, well, no worries there. So then you can load the priority on patching the library, because you still, for some point, want to get rid of that vulnerability because it's there. But there is no impact. It doesn't hurt you because you don't make that call to that. You make to that vulnerable procedure.
Yeah.
And those are the steps. Those are the things you have to make.
Yeah. And I'm curious what you think of, because some people in security, they say it's no matter a question if you get hacked, but it's a matter when you get hacked. So would you also say the modern security professional should have different skills to already know, okay, how do we act when shit hits the fan?
So today there was a news article that one of the Nexperia was hacked.
Yeah, the chip manufacturer in Nijmegen.
Yeah, and this morning we had a meeting with the ISEC community, and one of the participants said, well, I know the security officer personal. He's a good guy. He's a professional. He really has done all the things that you should and more. But still,
it happened.
So, it's really on general. I don't go for that perspective. Well, it's only a matter of time. But on the other hand, there is evidence that it can happen anyone.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is now going on with that CISO? Like it's also a very well-known big organization from Nijmegen, the chip manufacturer. So
I think that's the wrong question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you ask me how many security professionals are in your organization, I say 1,000, because we have 1,000 employees.
I like that. Yeah.
It's a joint effort.
Yeah.
If everybody now turns to the CISO, the CISO has done his job, because he was in the proactive side. He was working on the framework. He was working on the controls. He did his risk assessment. He put measures in place. That was his job. And now it's an incident.
Yeah,
you go for incident handling, and it's typically not in the part of the CISO.
No, is that not the case?
No, because is he a incident handler every day?
No, probably never before in his life, or maybe.
Well, I was at some point, but if you don't do it daily, if you're not continuous exercise on incident handling, minor or major, whatever, and then you're facing with the crisis, why should you set the CISO there to do major incident handling or the crisis handling? That doesn't fly for me, from my perspective.
Yeah, you're right. It's super interesting. But what would you do then in this situation? Bring in some expert to do it day in, day out?
Well, again, you have your management that on a daily basis handles challenges that has could have impact on the organization. So from that perspective, they are also a key part in handling this kind of crisis. And in the end, they also have a mandate to make choice and make things happen. So they are key.
Yeah.
And depending on your organization, the CISO not always has as mandate. So you need the people with the mandate, for sure. And of course, your crisis handler. So we have, for example, a former fire department officer.
Okay.
Well, he knows crisis.
Yeah.
He does. So also member of the BFA. He's the head of BFA, by the way. So bring in the team, bring in the crisis management team.
And that doesn't have to be a cybersecurity professional. Usually that's not even the case.
Well, I think it depends on the organization, depends on who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And do your exercise and see how it goes. And then you also get a better feeling who can really be that initial crisis manager.
Yeah.
And where does the other people fit in the team, and have it as a team effort, because only as a team you can handle this level of crisis.
Yeah. Oh, but thanks for that. I really didn't not notice. I thought, okay, when a big incident happens, then the CISO needs to step up and take initiative. But it makes sense that then the mandate switches. So you need to get the whole board involved. Maybe the CFO is there, the CTO, the CEO. Like everybody is getting involved. And you said yourself you've been an incident handler before. What makes a good incident handler? Because I feel you need to be pretty calm and collected. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, for me, my personal character is first to think and look, and then act. So that helps.
Yeah. But how do you keep composure if the place is on fire?
Well, I think everybody has his breaking point, because it's a matter of pressure. But yeah, one of my former employees, we also did regular testing of a practice. And because we were in a team of incident handlers, it was your daily job. So you get that reflex, you're very keen on triage. Practice make perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, if you do on a daily, hourly basis, you work with incidents, you get trained, you get skilled in that.
Yeah, you're ready for it.
Yeah. So if for example, that company, we took one of the policymakers or the head policymaker, the CISO, and you put him in, handle this incident right here, right now. What does he do? He goes for his toolkit. The toolkit is the policy documents.
Yeah.
The procedures.
You're lost.
Again, a little bit stereotyping, but in the end, have the right people on the right spot at the right moment.
Yeah. No, it's been very, very interesting, this conversation.
Thank you.
Also, this, it's like connecting new dots, and I think modern day CISOs they will encounter full-on crises or small crises. So maybe that's a nice message also from this podcast episode: is be ready, have some trial runs, and then you can also face with confidence if a moment like that would come. Then you're ready.
Yeah, stick to your control set. It's a valuable tool set, instrument. Not always the easiest one to use. Tedious sometimes. Takes a lot of effort and work. The cost, but again, it will help you in the end.
Yeah. Is there something that you would like to say to young people that might want to start in cybersecurity? Like, is there something that you want to share with them? What makes it so interesting?
Well, you have to be a little bit crazy.
Okay, is that positive?
Because it's not always the most. Well, it's perhaps a little bit strange closure, but I thought about this question. I think you asked a similar question up front. What makes you tick? Security for me is something that's all over the place, so that makes it really interesting. Of course, engineering, what I did was really fun, but I think the security adds that additional dimension. So because it's still a complex situation, but then also the people and the processes come into place. So for me, that makes it, much more challenging. But yeah, you have to endure. Not everybody understands that, because security is also, about compliance. It has to be there, and you put a firewall there, and you do stuff, and then it's okay. But the dynamics is there. So if you look at your risk assessment, it's a continuous story.
Yeah.
The threat landscape changes. The effectiveness of your controls change. A basic firewall or a stateful or a next-gen firewall, those also change. They are more effective to a certain extent. So the dynamics of it.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, and you have to like it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, you go perhaps for the money, and there's also an issue, but again, it's another topic. You have to be a little bit, you have to like it.
Yeah.
You have to go for it.
Oh, but I like what you said. I come from engineering, which is also very nice, but here there are more elements. So it's sort of engineering with more a social aspect to it.
Exactly.
So it has multiple dimensions, which is more fun.
For sure. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's a nice way to wrap it up. But before we come to a real closure, the last question we ask all the guests is if you can send one signal message across all the CISOs across the world, what would that signal message then state?
Don't give up. Stick to your controls and secure your company and secure the society.
Secure society. Beautiful. Roelof, thank you so much. It was really nice.
Thank you very much. It was also very nice for me to be here. So again, thank you for inviting me. Yeah. It was a real pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks for listening to this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Stay safe, stay curious, and until next time in the district.